to conferences all the time is the main driver for progress in your skill set and also your relationship, and basically any professional can become a better professional by attending conferences.
It's not the standard, okay? It's a movie theater, but the visual is great and the sound is great, and I've seen a lot of room and space, and I think it's organized well.
Seeing all the people here today and they're excited about stuff, and you can see the energy and the desire to learn and do new things.
And I was positively surprised about the depth, the technical depth of the sessions, and how that makes the tester part of the team.
I think developers do benefit from coming to QA conferences, just the same as testers can benefit from going to dev conferences. You've got to have a broad understanding of what's going on.
It's really inclusive. I would say it's super diverse. People are really, really open and friendly, and it's really organized.
Conferences are well worthwhile just for the ideas that they spark in people. When people come back to the office, they're full of ideas and they're all energized up.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen. I'm from Israel. I work at Test Project for 3 years now, and I love connecting with our amazing testing community all around the globe. Today, I'd like to talk to you about open source test automation, how it has been evolving over the years, what challenges might it bring to us, and how we can overcome them. So I hope you enjoyed this session, and thanks for watching. Everyone, it's great being here today with you all, and I'm gonna switch here to the presentation. So today we are going to talk about open source automation, how open source testing tools have been pretty much dominating the automation testing market. But what happens when we face challenges while trying to adopt these testing tools? How can we achieve our automation maturity, and what kind of strategies we can use to overcome some obstacles with open source testing. So before we get started, I'll share a little bit about myself. I'm a VP of Marketing at Test Project. Test Project is a free end-to-end test automation platform for web, mobile, and API testing. It's provided to the community at no cost, and we have open source SDK supporting Python, Java, and C#. And we're built on top of two of the leaders in open source field, Selenium and Appium. So if you're already using such open source solutions, I think that you'll find Test Project a really great tool to check out and explore. My journey at Test Project started 3 years ago, a bit more, and ever since I really grew to love the open source testing field and its amazing community. And we collaborate with worldwide thought leaders to generate collaborative space for the community to share ideas, best practice tips on open source tools, and we're really trying to make the software development and testing world a better and easier place for us all. And recently, we did a 2020 State of Open Source Testing survey. It was one of the largest open source testing surveys ever. And we'll be reviewing some of the results of the survey here today and talk about some of the challenges companies and individuals are facing while using open source tools, and how we can overcome that. So there is no doubt, as I said, open source testing tools have revolutionized the way testing is performed. Through community collaboration, transparency, such tools are developed at a rapid pace, and major projects like Selenium and Appium have become the gold standard of open source communities. So whether you're testing web or mobile applications, open source really is on fire. And you can see here a nice graphic from our survey, where one of the very first questions we asked was, how important is open source testing tool, such as Selenium and Appium, for example, to your functional testing process? And as you can see, between the people who said it was important and those who said it was very important, you can see that amounts to about to 92% of those who were surveyed that said they need open source tools for their functional testing, and that it is important for them. So this is kind of the main reasons why we say open source is on fire, and for good reason. So one of the things, though, that we found is that open source is not only for experts, right? So we were surprised to see that when we surveyed the companies and individuals that were doing open source testing, the average time of people that they had in the open source testing industry was about 9 years in the market, which means that clearly many who choose the path of becoming a testing expert choose to remain in the field of open source, and for good reason. But of course, you can see each side of the spectrum. We either have automation experts with over 15 years of experience, but also people who are just getting started, or people who have under 5 years of experience. So it's a really wide range of people, either doing test automation their whole lives, or people who are just starting to explore the field. And we believe that the current climate we are all experiencing, unfortunately, around the globe has definitely increased focus even more on cost savings and the benefits of that for open source technologies. But still, one of the things we wanted to prove is in our survey is that people are not only using open source testing tools because they're free. So although we saw that almost 40% of people surveyed said that cost was a major benefit to using open source tools, still, as you can see, a lot of others said numerous factors as well. And if you sum the total of all of these, it's over 50%. In fact, it's close to 60% of various other reasons beyond just cost. So reasons such as having a robust community support, wealth of integrations to various other tools, the ability to easily customize per your requirements and thus even scale further. So all of these become very important reasons why people are adopting open source tools, and eventually leading to open source being revolutionizing our testing experience. So all in all, we found there's at least 5,000 people we know of that are currently using open source testing tools such as Selenium, Appium, Cucumber, SpecFlow, and so on. And we believe these numbers probably are 5 times that of what you see here, meaning that we can confidently say that there are probably millions of people out there using open source tools. And it's easy to understand why these numbers are so high, according to some of the survey statistics we're sharing here today. But as we all know, nothing good comes without a bit of a challenge, right? So open source indeed is great, but I think test automation tools and open source tools come with a specific set of challenges, which we will be addressing in these slides here today. But before diving deep into each and every one of them, let's just quickly do an overview of 5 of the most common struggles we might be facing with open source tools. So number 1, the first one we see is that technical skills are required for using these tools are often very hard to acquire, or you need to find the right person that have such skills in their toolbox. Another challenge is maintenance. So a lot of these automation scripts built with open source tools can become very difficult to maintain and make sure all of the times that our tests are not breaking. A third challenge is collaboration. So we see a lot of test automation teams becoming more and more isolated rather than making sure that they have a safe space to collaborate and work together. And we can understand that as open source testing tools don't always contribute to a lot of collaboration between teams. And a fourth struggle is that a lot of times we see really slow running test automation suites. So sometimes test automation actually takes longer to run, even more so than a manual test, which kind of defeats the purpose, right? So that's another challenge. And fifth challenge is reporting. So there's pretty much lack of visibility into test results when using open source testing tools, and the inability to communicate these test results up into our management level or developers is very critical to delivering flawless products. So we'll be covering all of these challenges today and see kind of interesting ways we can overcome these. So let's start with the first one. Why do we see a challenge around the lack of right skills for testers using open source tools? Well, the number one reason would be that those people who are creating these tests are usually QA engineers and testers, and very rarely developers, right? So although there's a lot of discussion in the community about how developers should also be writing tests and helping with that, we all know it's not always possible, especially with rapid agile methodologies and DevOps that are increasing the rate in which we release new features pretty much every week. And we see that often testers don't have the right skills or haven't been trained up the right way, and most of them might be migrating from more of a manual testing approach to an automated testing approach, and they might not necessarily have gotten the training or skills, and that basically leads to a challenge with having technical skills. But you can obviously empower non-technical testers with having the appropriate tools, and that way widen the number of potential contributors to the overall product stability and fast deliveries by basically saving a bunch of time for everyone. So one recommended way to tackle this would be using test recorders. There's a lot of great free tools, test recorders out there in the market. There's obviously Selenium IDE we're all familiar with. There's Catalan. And there's also test projects. So each one is different, of course. And I would say if you're using Python or C# or Java, you might find that test project is a better recording solution for you because it allows you to export your recorded tests into these languages. And that way you can continue to learn to code on top of the recording that you've easily created within our scriptless recorder. And it really is 100% free, so that's always great. But definitely check out these options. They're all compatible with Selenium and Appium and should really make that transition easier from a scriptless recording approach into a coding approach with open source solutions such as Selenium. So moving on to our next challenge, I believe most of you can relate to this image here. And the second challenge is maintenance. So this kind of illustrates here what it oftentimes feels being a test automation expert, or how it looks like. So you're just constantly trying to put out fires and save breaking tests that are failing for different reasons. And it really is a never-ending task. So you complete one and another one just pops right up, right? So what happens a lot of times, for example, is that an element is not found when you're running your test. And this is a really common scenario that happens when developers sometimes unexpectedly changes, let's say, the CSS property or IDs or things like that. So it really changes the element on the page and causes our tests to break. And what we found that an approach to solve this common challenge with using open source tools such as Selenium is adopting a page object model design pattern that creates an object repository for storing all of the web elements and essentially reducing your test maintenance efforts by abstracting fast changing objects from the page level and creating a reusable model so that when things eventually do change or break, it will be easy to just go to one place and update that locator and have it changed across all of your tests that interact with that page. So teams can really utilize these test structures to allow easy reuse of code and eliminate maintenance time and potential breakages, right? So we can see how it looks without page objects and with them, and you can see that the changes that everything gets abstracted up from just being separated and unorganized sets of locators into something that we have pages, and the pages have actions, and the actions then map to these elements. So such abstraction really can help with test maintenance. So this is really common with a lot of test frameworks, and it's also built into a lot of tools, just like Test Project that provides one streamlined object repository in which you can store all of your elements and save time in case of needing to replace or edit elements. Another thing that is very good with dealing with maintenance and helps with reuse in general is building as many reusable tests as possible and making them small as possible. So you can build, for example, a login test that could be reused across a number of your different test suites. You can essentially nest these tests into another test. And this basically makes the whole process of building out tests quickly to be very easy, and it makes maintenance process very simple as well, because you don't need to go ahead and change things in each and every test. You simply go to one and change that. So for example, if the URL to your site testing happens to change for some reason, rather than just going and finding where you used it in every test, you can simply go to one single test, change it over there. And as long as you use the same login process consistently across your entire end-to-end test scenario, it will update automatically through all of the other test cases. So likewise, with nesting, you can always also use parameterizing of your tests and create variables for URL, username, password, and so on. So you can quickly reuse these tests and enjoy the benefits of not having to maintain separate test cases. So this really leads us into the whole data-driven approach. You can basically parameterize all of your variables, as we mentioned, such as URL, username, password, and pull those from a data source. And this way you can easily create a number of different scenarios and to really ease on your whole test maintenance. So moving on to our next challenge, which is collaboration. I think we can all agree that team collaboration really is a key to success, no matter what field you are in. Building a solid team and being able to share and learn from each other and encourage each other really makes a big difference, whether we succeed or fail in any project and anything in life. So here we're talking about open source testing, of course, and I'm talking about team collaboration within your testing team. So, of course, when it comes to open source tools, it's not always that easy to work as a team and cultivate that team spirit culture we're all looking for. And being able to share test assets and allow teams to create together has a lot of value that we should definitely look for. So what teams can basically do is leverage a centralized repository of test assets, which are easy to find and tailored to your specific team's use cases. And having everything stored in the same location, especially during these times of working from home, is very crucial for being able to update your test cases in a fast manner, and also using your tests that maybe one of your colleagues already created them. So why waste time in doing that again? You could just benefit from what your teammate already did and learn from each other, and along that also save a bunch of time. So we actually built Test Project with team collaboration in mind. As a cloud-based solution with Test Project, you can create different projects, folders, and tests, and share your entire execution reports, share Selenium test artifacts, and really invite your teammates to collaborate literally on everything, while making sure you are all working on the same environment, the same Selenium version, and have the most updated versions of your tests. So you can all see everything through a streamlined single view. So team collaboration in such a collaborative repository will definitely make a change while working with open source tools like Selenium and Appium. Next up to our challenge, as we discussed before, one of the things we've been seeing is that people start to automate their tests, and their automation actually might run slowly than their manual tests. The main reason behind that is that they're probably not taking advantages of things like running automated tests in parallel. So this is especially a good approach if you're doing cross-browser testing and you're running the same scenario across multiple browsers. So basically, rather than running them in a series, one after the other, which obviously takes time, and instead of that, you can really speed up your test automation process and get results quickly if you run these tests in parallel, right? So basically using an approach where they can run in different threads, but at the same time. And a lot of companies we're seeing, especially with our users and test projects, are taking advantage of browser and device farms. This way you can achieve such tests, running tests in parallel. These browsers and device farms basically host machines and mobile devices that you have ready to use at any time of your choice and run your tests, and then execute them in parallel. So you get much faster executions and much faster results back to your developers. The most common ones we're seeing used among our test project users are Sauce Labs and BrowserStack. But there are a lot of companies that actually are building their own infrastructure using Selenium Grid, which is essentially a test cloud or browser and device farm that they host themselves. All of these solutions are, of course, great. But if you leverage a shared cloud infrastructure, you would probably be accelerating your test execution even further, because you don't need to deal with the maintenance of building your own Selenium Grid. I think it really comes down to what are your security needs, what type of budget do you have, and also how much time do you have to maintain a Selenium Grid infrastructure. So hosting your own Selenium Grid can be really a great option, but it's obviously time consuming and going to require maintenance from your end. For instance, if servers go down or when a new browser or operating system comes out. But it could definitely be a good option for companies that need very high levels of security, since Browser Stack and Sauce Labs are options that run in the cloud, and not everyone is ready to executing their tests in the cloud. So, of course, there are different considerations to make here, but either way, we really recommend, when possible, running your tests in parallel with device or browser farms like one of these or Selenium Grid. You also have some options doing so with Docker containers, with Test Project also supports, but running your tests in parallel would definitely save you a bunch of time. So moving on to our last challenge, but not least, reports. So we all know how important reports are for our decision making and for our management level and stakeholders, as well as for our developers. So the thing is that with open source testing tools, there seems to be kind of a gap in terms of providing built-in reporting. So such tools don't always have built-in features for reporting. And you will either receive just a really generic, simple report, which just might show you a pass or fail result, but you really need more than that. You want to have a dedicated, consolidated report that shows you results across all the different tools you're using and across all your test cases, and really detailed step-by-step what failed, what succeeded, what needs to be improved, and so on. So you might want to look into some test reporting solutions for generating Selenium reports, such as TestNG, Extent Report, which is also known as Clove, JUnit plugin for Jenkins, and there are a lot more. And of course, Test Project, where you get built-in real-time reporting analytics and dashboards that are automatically created for you once you execute your Selenium or Appium tests. So you could customize the reports, get screenshots, extract them into a PDF summary, and basically easily share these with your colleagues or stakeholders. And at the end of the day, as I said, reporting is crucial for us, and we each have different metrics which we're following and we want to track. But I believe these are probably one of the most important ones, starting with speed. You all want to make sure you're measuring how fast your tests run, how quickly they're executing, and you want to make sure they continue to get faster and not get slower. So we make sure to get quick feedbacks to our developers. Next up, you want to measure the flakiness. So are your tests consistent? Do they give you the right result? For instance, when something works, does the test say it passed, or does it give you a false positive and say that it failed? So that's very critical to look out for. Next up is, of course, coverage. How many of your application functions are covered by the automation test cases? Next up is novelty. So this comes down to finding bugs. And this is where you would probably want your reports pulling data from tools like Jira. And you want to know how many bugs you're finding and specifically how many new bugs you're finding, and trying to prevent them rather than just constantly finding the same old bugs. And last but not least, impact. So we also want to know, I mean, we could have failures, but they don't necessarily have a huge impact on the product, but some could potentially have a huge impact on our company and on our users. So when you're doing your testing and you find out that something's not working, you really want to know beyond that, what exactly is it that's not working. And let's say we're an online shopping store and the checkout process is not working. That means that when you go live, you take the risks that nobody will be able to check out and the company ends up losing. So you can really understand the high levels of impact that testing can have and how important it is to see those in our reports. So to summarize what we've been discussing here today, we shared some recommendations for adopting open source tools and how we can overcome these challenges. And really, regardless of whichever tool you are using, there are some basic aspects we really recommend following and considering once you start your journey, which is using page object model patterns and shared test and page element storage along with team collaboration. Ability to create scriptless tests, so you can also support new and non-technical users, and parallel testing to speed up your entire process, and of course reports, which we've seen how crucial it can be to our decision making. And so, of course, as we've discussed, there are also a number of options and tools you can use for each of these ways to overcome open source testing obstacles. You have GitHub for storing your tests, or you can store them on a network storage device. You could create your scriptless test using Selenium IDE. Run your tests on Browser Stack or Sauce Labs or Selenium Grid. And of course, there's test project. As I said, we cover a number of these areas as well, and is a great option to help you take your Selenium and Appium testing to the next level. And at the end of the day, we do have great ways to overcome all of the challenges we might be facing. And I hope this kind of a short overview helped you in learning more about great ways to adopting open source tools and not being afraid of them. And of course, not being afraid of the challenges and learning to love them as much as everyone does, and achieving great success while doing so. So thank you for listening. And I'd love to continue this discussion with you either over in the Q&A I'll take a look at now, and afterwards you can join me at the, there's an Ask Me Anything section, which you can join over on Zoom. And of course, feel free to contact me anytime through email, LinkedIn, or our website. I'd be happy to connect and learn from you guys as well and share best practices. So thank you. I guess now I might stop my share of the screen so I can go ahead to the questions, or I can just go here. Let's see if we have any questions. Feel free to ask anything. Of course, we'll be having a kind of a more one-on-one Ask Me Anything on Zoom after this. So you can definitely join me there, and we can discuss more in person if you'd prefer that. I guess we can wait a couple more minutes to see if there's any questions, or just go ahead and move to the Ask Me Anything Zoom. Well, I guess no questions for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I guess oh, here it is. I see a question by, oh, I see questions coming up. I guess I had a bit of a delay. So what about Playwright or Puppeteer as its new open source trending tools in test automation world? Sure, those are great as well. I just mentioned here a couple of examples. You know, it could take us quite a while if we'd cover all of them, but these are definitely great solutions as well. It just really depends at the end of the day on your requirements and maybe the programming languages you're using, or the level of skills as we talked before. So that's definitely great. And I guess I can mark that as answered. So next up, how do you report on flakiness of tests? So, well, that's a great question. Basically, if flakiness means that at the end of the day, your tests might be running one time, but at the next day or even the next couple of minutes, it might not be working. So the thing is when you do use reporting solutions, you could see that pretty easily. You can see exactly what failed, and you can easily detect such flakiness tests, right? So it would really help with determining if you have any flakiness within your test. And there are a number of solutions for that. For instance, Test Project has a self-healing mechanism built into its technology. So it basically helps avoid such breakages and flakiness, because just say in case an element has changed, we make sure to cover that and replace it with the next best locator. So there are a number of options like that, and we definitely support those. So I guess I'll mark that as answered. Next up, great question. How do you deal with the data secure and test project? All automated tests are uploaded to the cloud. So I will divide my answer into two. First of all, in terms of securing data in test project, we take it very seriously. We have numerous customers with in fields that require very high levels of security, and still very much enjoying test project, because we make sure that all of the data is encrypted, and we use the most secure clouds out there. There's a lot more information on our website at testproject.io/security. And to kind of address the second part of what you wrote here, that all automated tests are uploaded to the cloud, well, that's not exactly the case, because say if you're using our SDK, which is completely open source, all of the tests are local, so you don't need to upload anything back to Test Project. It's by using our Open SDK, the new version we released a couple weeks back, and everything is basically stored locally on your machine. It's only that the reports that come back automatically to the cloud. So I hope that addresses your question, but of course we have a dedicated security officer that would be more than happy to have a call with you anytime and kind of elaborate more about these security aspects. So I guess I can mark this as answered. Let's see what else we can do here. So for I see, oh, let me read it out loud. Oh, this one we answered. Oh, next up, how do you measure coverage for functions? It is easier to do code coverage using unit test code coverage tools. How about for high-level tests? Well, measuring coverage for functions is more easy to do so with using custom logic within your coded tests. We offer an SDK for C#, Python, and Java, which could help you achieve such measuring of the coverage, which you could also do by seeing the automatic reports that you get back to Test Project. That's, of course, everything here is just one option, one solution here with Test Project, but of course there are numerous options, and I'd be more than happy to continue discussing these over our live Zoom session, if you guys want to join me over there. So I guess there are no further questions for now, but if if you do want to join me in the live Ask Me Anything section, it's on a Zoom link I believe you've all received. So I'd be happy for you to join me over there. I'll be there right now. So I'll see you soon, and thank you very much for listening. Bye.